are living in a time of polycrisis. The key challenges confronting us includes planetary crisis, regression in the pace of achieving SDGs, and the intensifying conflict threatening world peace. It is important than ever that environmental stewardship is prompted at all levels and across all spheres. With this premise, we had set this year's umbrella theme of the World Sustainable Development Summit as Leadership for Sustainable Development and Climate Justice. As we come to an end, it is imperative to reflect on our journey thus far and hear from our leaders to drive agendas and actions that can balance the pillars of environmental sustainability, social equity, and economic growth. Ladies and gentlemen, distinguished guests and esteemed speakers, as the curtain draws close on the enlightening journey, we gather here to celebrate not just the culmination of discussions, but the seeds of change sown during our time together. Please let us all take our seats as we embark on this journey. I, Shireen Pandita, would be your host for the evening. To kickstart our valedictory session, I would like to welcome our distinguished speakers for the evening, who are all great visionary leaders in their own realm. Put your hands together for Mr. Nitin Desai, Chairman TERI. His Excellency, Mr. Eric Garcetti, the United States Ambassador to the Republic of India. Mr. Shambi Sharp, the United Nations Resident Coordinator in India. Mr. Amit Raj, Director of the Climate Change Division at the Ministry of Environment, Forest and Climate Change. Dr. Shelley Kadia, Senior Fellow and Associate Director at TERI. And last but not the least, Director General TERI, Dr. Vibha Dhawan. Thank you so much for all of you to coming today and gracing us with your presence. To commence our valedictory session, it's an honor to invite the visionary leader and chairman of TERI, Mr. Nitin Desai, to share his reflection and chairman's remark with all of us. Can we have a round loud of applause for Mr. Desai, please?
Thank you very much. I first welcome all of you who have joined us today, the Ambassador of the United States, the head of UN, Amit here, and Vibha Dhawan, the Director General of TERI, who will speak to us. This is the 23rd World Sustainable Development Summit. And I've been attending it right from the very beginning, from the very first one. And one sense of difference that I see is that 20 years ago, we had to spend a lot of our time raising people's awareness as to what the challenges of sustainability, of climate issues, etc. This has changed. What I see today is a growing, we don't have to spend time on raising awareness. People are aware of what those challenges are. What we have to discuss and talk about, and what all of you have talked about throughout these 3 days, is the actions we need to take on this issue. And the actions that we need to take are certainly at the ground level local. But we also know that the effectiveness of what we do in one place, one country, depends also on what other countries are doing, particularly on issues like climate. We are doing well in India on coping with what the changes which are required to cope with the challenges of climate. But even if we succeed fully in what we are going to do, and we probably will, it will not be enough if the other countries of the world do not meet the goals and targets that they've set for themselves. And it's because of this global dimension that TERI has set up this World Sustainable Development Summit. The other dimension is, it's not just a summit about government people. It's a summit which brings together people from government who are involved in decision making, people from the corporate sector who are involved in this, people from think tanks, from non-governmental organizations which are involved in this. And when we talk of leadership, as was the theme of this WSDS event, when we talk of leadership, it has to be leadership all around. In governments, in bureaucracies, in all different levels of government, in corporate sectors, small and large, in think tanks, and so on. And this is something that I truly welcome in the way in which WSDS has been doing this. We have had many very good sessions of thinking about action that needs to be taken and the challenges throughout these 3 days. We also have some important outcomes. I was very happy at the outcome which was announced a little earlier today, where the Tata Energy Research Institute, TERI, and the Ministry of Power and Renewable Resources are going to collaborate on a center for energy development, which will really be something which will focus as much attention on identifying actions as on training, research, and so on. And this is truly an important outcome because this is the most important area of adjustment that we need. And this is one of the products of the exercises that TERI has undertaken and what has come out of this particular session. So in many ways, that's very important. The other thing which really enthuses me is that increasingly the participation of people in WSSA involves young people. That is very welcome, because they are the ones who will have to face the consequences of inaction by us, old people. So I'm truly happy that over time, the participation of young people in WSDS has also gone up. So for all of these things, I thank you all for your participation and involvement in this event. And I truly look forward to the future sessions of WSDS, which I hope you will continue taking a strong interest in. I want to end basically with a word of thanks. And my most important word of thanks is to two people from TERI. Dr. Vibha Dhawan, our Director General of TERI, and I don't know where she is, Shaili Kedia, there she is, Shaili Kedia. The person, the curator who has been responsible for organizing everything. I mentioned the two of them, but behind the two of them there are many, many others. And I would like to take, it will be too time consuming to list all of them now, but I would like to take this opportunity through these two people to thank all of the others who are there. But above all, to thank all of you who have participated in and contributed to the discussions and so on which have gone on this place. So thank you very much, and do continue to be involved in this exercise.
Thank you so much, sir. Building upon Mr. Desai's insight, we now have the privilege to hear from Ambassador Eric Garcetti, the United States Ambassador to the Republic of India, as he delivers his profound leadership address. Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Namaskar. It's a wonderful afternoon and the end of a wonderful week to be together. Thank you all for everything you have done. Nitin, to you, and to TERI for really pulling together one of the most important gatherings, not just in India, but in the world, year after year, to spur action, to take ideals into material gains in this area that will define our lives and define our children's and our grandchildren's life. And what an honor it is for me to be here with such friends and such a distinguished panel, to be able to join with the government of India in so many ministries that are working so strongly with such great leadership on defining this moment, and the United Nations, our NGOs, that together really can show that this won't just be one of the most important intersections for this issue, but perhaps here in India, it'll be the defining place where ideas and action and inspiration flow from. And I want to thank some of the American sponsors that are here, my dear friends at Bloomberg and Rockefeller, Johnson Controls, and our DC public, private, philanthropic, and other organizations that have been a part of this convening. And of course, my mission here, all the staff that I get to work with, my team members, every single day. You know, I was thinking back about my second trip to India when I was 19 years old. I was studying Hindi and Urdu in class. My roommate had coincidentally, his father had become the US ambassador to India. And he said, my dad's now the ambassador in India. Do you want to come stay in the ambassador's residence in Delhi? And I knew that would only happen once in my life, so I said, yes, of course, let's go. But I remember taking some homework with me because I was taking a science course that seemed intriguing to fulfill my science requirement as an undergraduate, called the Design and Maintenance of a Habitable Planet. The professor who taught the course was somebody named Wallace. He went by Wally, Dr. Wally Broker. And he is the person who came up with the term global warming before anybody used that two-word phrase. And the year that we were studying and taking this course was the year that the first UN panel of scientists came forward with the evidence of what was happening to our Earth. And while Dr. Broker is no longer alive, he charted out what would happen, knowing, of course, that human action would try to work quickly, but we as human beings are usually late when we face crisis until it gets so bad that we then finally implement solutions. And some 30 years later, his predictions of the warming Earth have been almost to 0.1, 0.2 degrees exactly accurate, based on what he projected back then. The good news is he projected that because human beings are stubborn, we like to survive, we're innovative, we come up with every generation's technological breakthroughs, that we would bend that curve down eventually. But we find ourselves perhaps in the most painful moment of that rising curve, and a place certainly for our young activists, people even like my daughter who's 12 years old, that for those of us who grew up in the United States, I remember what it was like to be scared of nuclear war, the possibility somebody could press a button and the Earth would disappear. Our children know that the Earth is disappearing, or at least the world as they know it. And they're at that most painful moment saying, why aren't we doing more? To their mothers and their fathers and to their grandparents. My immediate past job was to lead one of the great global cities, Los Angeles, as mayor of Los Angeles for 9.5 years. A place that is synonymous with both the environment, the ocean, the waves, beautiful mountains, perfect weather, but also with pollution. In a city where I grew up with the worst air quality, it's estimated that children of my generation have about 85% the lung capacity they should have because of the smog we grew up with, something I know so many Indians are studying today as they face the same challenges we did. And it is a place which struggled to try to redefine itself, the car capital of the world, trying to build public transportation, a place that owned the largest municipal utility in America, but mostly was reliant on coal and on carbon-based generation for electricity. And so we authored a Green New Deal that was looking at how we could create jobs, create more health, and create a healthier planet, and implement that over the next coming years. In some ways, it was the boldest Green New Deal of any city in the world. So when President Biden asked me to consider this job, I had joined together with mayors and local leaders here in India, in Africa, across Asia, Europe, Latin America, Oceania, to show the power that we have at the local community, which is the main point I want to emphasize with you today. Because the panel says, I don't know where the name went to, but it's about leadership. And oftentimes we mistake leadership for the people with the biggest titles, when leadership is actually every single human being in this room, watching, every community, every family, every institution, every school. Every one of us should not cede the power that we have before we exercise it. We were just talking on the stage a little bit about what happened in my own country when our previous president decided to become the only leader of any country in the world to say, Paris, I think we'll withdraw from that. It could have been a moment which some of us who have worked on this issue went into the corner and started to cry, became paralyzed, and wondered what would happen. But as a local leader at the time, I decided to do the opposite. I picked up the phone and started calling my fellow state and local leaders in America. I had founded an organization called Climate Mayors, made up of mayors from every political party and those of no political party in the United States. We had about 30 members initially. By the end of the day in which the previous president said he would withdraw, we had 100 members. Within a week, 300. And within a month, over 500 cities across America, different geography, different size, different politics, different aged mayors, women, men, different ethnicities, religions, all said, If he won't do it, if he's going to pull out, we're going to double down and go in. And in some ways, we would joke to each other, if we'd had a different president who said, okay, we're staying in Paris, in some ways, it would have allowed us in local communities to be lazier. Well, our national government's got this covered, right? They've set the goals, so we don't actually have to do anything. But in opposition to this, we suddenly did more probably than we would have done otherwise. And in doing so, we recognized and realized the power that we have. Similarly, the LIFE initiative of this country. Initially, I think there were some skeptics in the international community saying, we need big commitments on things like power grids. We need to see national commitments. And I argued within the United States government, the LIFE initiative was exactly what the world needed. I took to the stage at COP28 as chair of a group called C40, which Bloomberg and others fund, the 100 largest cities in the world. To give you an idea, we're responsible for about 1/5 of the entire global economy. These cities, including Indian cities, made a commitment to net zero. And I was the only non-national leader allowed to speak on those 2 days. I spoke right after Prime Minister Modi, about 2 speakers later. And we added up that commitment of local communities around the world, from London and Buenos Aires and Mexico City and Tokyo, from Lagos and other cities. And combined, it was the equivalent of the 5th largest country in the world making a commitment to net zero by 2040. In doing that, we showed again that while national leaders must negotiate, make ambitious, bold goals, which I'm proud our president now has done in America, pass the necessary legislation, see what India has done by being now the fastest implementer of renewable energy anywhere on the face of the earth. These things are critical, but they only work when we work, where we live, where we work, where we pray, where we study, in the local communities that make this happen. That's why we're very proud here in this country to be joining, not telling India what to do, but listening to the leadership coming from India, and then joining hands where we find opportunities. For instance, to help India reach her own goal of making zero-carbon railway transportation a reality through funds through USAID to do some of the technical work. Or to help local municipalities and states here in India procure electric buses, and to make sure that they have the guarantees so that bus companies can buy zero-emission buses that clean up the air day to day and reduce the carbon over time. To look at the ways that we're managing forests together and biodiversity, where you're pushing us and challenging us to do more. At the same time, we're bringing resources to help you reach the goals that you have here. This is an area which nobody can afford to talk down to anyone. We must approach each other arm in arm. And I learn from India as much as I bring some of our experiences when asked to Indians. For instance, we recently brought our National Renewable Energy Laboratory and the supercomputer power of that institution, which is in Colorado, United States, where we ran over 10 million different scenarios to help Los Angeles show that you could have 100% renewable power, that was 100% reliable, that was 100% affordable, and of course 100% green. And working now with Indian states to say, would you like to use this computer? See the ways in which we don't have to say, well, yes, of course we want to get renewable, but we need to have a grid that's reliable. Of course we do. People need to have medical equipment that works, air conditioners that function, all those things that save lives and that commerce depends on. But I know that we are seeing the solutions in this gathering that don't make us choose between those things, but that bring them together. So I know we've got other brilliant voices that I want to cede the space to, but I would repeat what I said early on. Never cede the power that you have before you try to exercise it. And don't just listen to those of us with the titles. Your title doesn't matter. Your ideas, your actions, your commitment, your heart. The United States and India have never been closer with our hearts. I think we've never been closer in our thinking. But now the question is, can we put our feet together and walk together towards where we need to be? The G20 leadership, which was magnificent here, showed that countries, even in moments of conflict, can see past the conflict of today to solve the problems of tomorrow. And if we do that and look at the impact, how women and children are 14 times more likely to be killed by climate change and to be affected by that, the vulnerable communities that live because of their poverty right on the cutting edge. Those are the folks that we must center, not just in our actions, but in the leadership that they have as well. So I leave here inspired today. I leave here energized. And I told President Biden that I've always loved India. I wanted to accept this proposal of serving here. But I said one of the main reasons is because we will either win this climate war or not here in India. And looking at all of you today, I'm filled with great hope that that is a war we will win together. Thank you.
Thank you, Ambassador. I heard someone say wow out loud in the crowd, and I must say that is exactly what I feel right now. Wow, your speech was absolutely enriching. That definitely deserves another round of applause. And if I may add, like what you said about each one of us is a leader in itself. Here at TERI, there's a research term called quadruple helix, where businesses, communities, academia, all of them come together and we kind of initiate on ideas and solutions together. So we believe in that, and we are looking forward to, working together and, working together towards a better future for sure. Thank you so much. With this, we have another really amazing member, Mr. Shami Sharp, the United Nations Resident Coordinator in India, to share his insightful leadership address with the gathering. Can we have a loud round of applause for him, please?
Thank you so much. That's a tough act to follow. The comment from the front row reminds me of that meme, looking like a wow. So I don't know what to do after somebody looking like a wow. But let me say, first of all, Mr. Desai, I would still prefer to say USG, Under Secretary General Desai. Dear colleagues on the dais from Ministry of Environment, Forest and Climate Change, and TERI, and U.S. government, of course, looking like a wow. On behalf of the UN country team here in India, and as representative of the Secretary General, mujhe yaha bulane ke liye dhanyawad, bahut dhanyawad. And wish to join in appreciating TERI's role in bringing together so many incredible. I was looking at the list of speakers in the last 20 years or something, and it's like a hall of fame. So it's an honor to be part of this storied legacy, this really important global gathering. Dear friends, I think that we're already sort of quickly well into 2024. We probably many of us would have hoped that things might have changed since the last year, but unfortunately no. Everywhere we look, we continue to see crises. If anything, maybe it seems like some of the news is getting worse. We know that last year was the hottest on record, according to some, the hottest in 100,000 years. As Ambassador Garcetti was speaking about coining the term global warming, and now the Secretary General of the UN is talking about the global boiling. The cruel irony, of course, in all of this is that some half of the world's most climate vulnerable countries, those who have done the least to create this problem, are not only facing the greatest impacts, but they're also on debt row. They're increasingly forced to make a decision between paying the interest on their debt and putting food on the table for their people, or investing in resilience in the face of the crisis that is killing lives already as we speak, taking lives. And unfortunately, at the same time, the institutions that we built to solve these global challenges, to bring people together, multilateralism with the UN at its heart, is no longer fit for purpose. As the Secretary General says, we cannot expect the world that we designed for our grandparents to deliver a bright future for our grandchildren. So we need climate leadership, we need cooperation now more than ever. And yet, multilateralism is very clearly mired in geopolitical tensions and conflicts and global divides that are preventing this coming together that we so desperately need. But we do see reasons for optimism, and I want to speak about two reasons for optimism. And one, USG Desai already mentioned, which is, the world is waking up. And it's no longer, these issues are no longer on the fringe, they're no longer technical discussions, but it's mainstream. Talking about the climate is mainstream. And if we look just in recent months, last year's landmark High Seas Treaty was a remarkable breakthrough. The historical Global Biodiversity Agreement coming at COP15, another remarkable breakthrough. COP28, for the first time, and we can say, I guess, better late than never, is finally targeting fossil fuels and achieving a number of other important agreements, getting funding into the Loss and Damage Fund, for example. Secondly, India gives much reason for optimism, and I think this has already been touched upon many different points. But in a divided world, when you need more heroes, India has emerged as a leader, as a bridge builder between the north and south, between the east and west, and as a leader in the voice for climate justice, and increasingly as a provider of development best practice for other countries. So I think that, and we saw this at the G20, right? At a time when very few gave the G20 process any hope of coming to a consensus. We saw how important it was that India was able to bring people across divides, to use that goodwill in every direction, and to put the issues of the global south, of developing countries from food insecurity to debt distress, and the SDGs at the very center of the consensus New Delhi Declaration. So we took much heart from that, and that led directly into the global discussion on the SDGs at the SDG Summit in New York with much more momentum. This also included calls for reforming the frankly dysfunctional international financial architecture. It's absolutely critical and urgent that our multilateral development banks and the international financial architecture is reformed. Of course, Ajay Banga at the World Bank, Indian origin, and many others have taken this to heart and are pushing forward to find the ways to unleash, not the billions, but the trillions of dollars that we need to finance the ambitions for the development ambitions for the developing world in line with energy transitions. So we estimate $4 trillion to plug the SDG financing gap. Lots of big numbers are thrown around. The SG has called for a $500 billion SDG stimulus. And that seems like a lot. And then we look at global capital markets, and there are different estimates, but it's well over 100 trillion, 113, 120 trillion dollars in global capital markets. So the money, the financing is absolutely there, but it's finding the ways to de-risk and incentivize and blended financial instruments becoming parts of public-private partnerships. And there are so many ways to do it. We know what to do. It just takes that leadership. And the reason that India is so important also, it's that political leadership, it's that momentum. But also, quite frankly, as the Secretary General said in his visits here, India is quite literally the country that can make the global SDGs a reality. Quite literally, we estimate that something like 25 to even 50% of some global targets who need to be met here in India. So I always like to say, I grew up with that slogan, think globally, act locally. But, the beauty of being in India, think globally, act locally, and you deliver globally, in fact. That is the scale of what's happening here. Now, of course, across India, across the global south, the developing world. Climate action does not and cannot mean sacrificing the right to development. This is so important. It cannot mean reducing the ambitions of people to live the same lives in terms of even material consumption that higher income countries enjoy. We have to just find a different way to achieve that, one in harmony with the future of this planet, and one in harmony that goes hand in hand with justice and with equity. And India is, I would argue, the most important test case in this regard globally. As the G20 Sherpa Amitabh Kant is saying, can India blaze a new path to industrialize for the first time at such scale in a low-carbon pathway? And in this regard, we see so many encouraging dynamics, from the very ambitious Panchamrit targets, 500 gigawatts of renewable energy and many other targets there, to really a world-class, world-leading model of digital public infrastructure, of public-private partnerships, and a private sector, a dynamic private sector that is investing billions and billions of dollars in renewable energy, in electric mobility, for example. There's incredible momentum, as Ambassador Garsadi noted already. Electric vehicles in India in 2019, there were about 1,400 sold. Fast forward just a couple of years, 2023, 1.3 million. My favorite game, actually, when I arrived 2 years ago here in Delhi, the blue three-wheeler didn't exist, the electric three-wheeler. And now they're popping up all over the place. I love spotting the blue ones and kind of like the bugs, the Volkswagens we used to do in the US. But, you know, in a few years from now, they're going to be everywhere, in charging stations and all of this. And also, for justice, climate justice, the loss and damage direction, adaptation, is so critically important. This is why the Secretary General has called for half, at least, of all climate financing to go to resilience building. Measures like the Coalition on Disaster Resilient Infrastructure that India has been leading on, to balance, for example, investments like the International Solar Alliance. Early warning systems for all, again, where India is showing the way in dramatic improvements in terms of covering the most vulnerable areas of the country. And if we look at history, it is important. And if we look at per capita numbers, that is important. I mean, when we're looking at human development, when we're looking at climate justice, one can argue that a nation state is a sort of an arbitrary concept. We're looking at individuals' rights to development and enjoyment of those rights. India, for example, has contributed only 4% of historic greenhouse gas emissions. Yet, like many other developing countries, is on the forefront of facing the impacts of the development that has been achieved by other countries on high carbon paths in the past. So we have to find the way to meet both adaptation, mitigation, climate action, and climate justice. And as the Secretary General has said, multilateral system remains, and the world has agreed that the UN and other multilateral platforms are the only way forward for our collective future. Therefore, the Summit of the Future, this coming September, is precisely the opportunity to reboot multilateralism, and India is very much at the forefront of that discussion. So let me conclude in, again, thanking, and as Mr. Desai mentioned, one more reason why India gives so much optimism. That is the greatest youth generation in history. It is about young people. No country has ever had more young minds to tap for solutions in history. And looking out here in the crowd, I see so many of you, and I reiterate that this is a partnership between the young people, and my favorite phrase, those of us who are not so young, jo dil se young hai. We are young at heart. Together we can. SDGs दुनिया में मुमकिन होंगी क्योंकि इंडिया में मुमकिन होंगी. बहुत धन्यवाद.
Thank you so much, Mr. Sharp. If Ambassador's speech was wow, your definitely was elegant and beautiful. Can we have a loud round of applause for this? It's genuinely really nice. I also got a cue from my colleague that Ambassador has some prior commitments, so he'll be leaving for them now. I would like to express my gratitude once more to Ambassador Garcetti for taking the time to participate in this summit, which is dedicated to foster change from its inception. Before you leave, Ambassador, I'm sorry if it's possible for us, all of you, to take a picture. Thank you. A resounding round of applause for Ambassador, please. Thank you so much. As we navigate the intricate realm of policy, let us gain further insights from Mr. Amit Raj, Director of the Climate Change Division at the Ministry of Environment, Forest and Climate Change, as he shares his policy perspective. We welcome you, sir.
Thank you, respected Chair, distinguished fellow panelists, ladies and gentlemen. A very good afternoon to all of you. To begin with, let me take this opportunity to congratulate TERI, the Energy and Resource Institute, for organizing yet another a successful World Sustainable Development Summit. The theme of leadership for sustainable development and climate justice assumes great significance in the wake of climate change impacts being felt across the globe. Friends, every country has different starting points. Every country has different development strategies, their trajectories. They have varied trajectories which are dependent upon the national priorities and the needs. The countries face challenges in terms of availability of the technology, the infrastructure available, the capacity, the affordable finance, among others, to undertake appropriate climate actions. Many people have opined that accelerating sustainable development is also one of the strategies to reduce vulnerability to climate change. Therefore, to meet the developmental needs of the country, it is important that our development priorities, including energy security, is not compromised, while at the same time, emission intensity is also kept under control. The sustainable development requires optimum utilization of resources while keeping the future generations in mind. For the global south and also the developing countries like India, climate action is intrinsically linked to development. While tackling with the climate change, it is imperative to remind ourselves of the responsibilities towards climate justice. The idea of climate justice seeks fairness in distribution of burdens and responsibility of climate change among countries. The best of science today recognizes that equity and CBDRRC are essential to making a livable world. But we need far more work and effort by the global scientific community to actually develop the scenarios that show us what the pathways is and how to evolve along such a pathway. Friends, even though India is not part of this problem, but India has done enough and more than its fair share in addressing the climate change. India has achieved the targets of emission intensity of GDP and non-fossil fuel based installed power capacity given under its NDC much before the target date. And now, India has already submitted the revised updated NDCs in August 22. India also has submitted its LTLEDs, as you must be aware. Friends, Government of India stands committed to combating climate change through its several programs, which includes the National Action Plan, the State Action Plans. The National Action Plan, which is the overarching framework for all the climate actions in the country, comprises of missions in specific areas of solar energy, water, agriculture, health, Himalayan ecosystem, habitat, transport, and Green India. Under the state action plans, 34 states have already submitted their state action plans and they are implementing it, and now we are moving ahead to revise those state action plans in line with the NDCs. Friends, the long-term low-emission carbon strategy of India provides India's vision and action plan for achieving its updated NDC goals and the targets of net zero emissions by 2070. The key sectors I will highlight of the low carbon transition towards the goal of net zero by 2070 include electricity systems, urbanization, industrial systems, transport systems, forestry, carbon dioxide removal, and economic and financial aspects. The LTLEDs has been prepared in the framework of India's right to an equitable and fair share of the global carbon budget. This is the practical implementation of India's call for climate justice. In the LTLDS, a strong emphasis has been given on research and innovation in all the sectors. It also emphasizes energy security, energy access, and employment, while keeping focus on the vision of Atmanirbhar Bharat, or self-reliant India, and Make in India. Transition to low carbon development pathways will entail several costs pertaining to the development of new technologies, new infrastructure, and other transaction costs. While several estimates are available, they all fall generally in the range of trillions of dollars by 2050. Provision of climate finance by developed countries will play a very significant role and needs to be considerably enhanced in the form of grants and concessional loans. Friends, Mission Life has been launched by our Honorable Prime Minister, which is an India-led global mass movement and aims to nudge individuals and communities to practice an environmentally conscious lifestyle. Mission Life is an initiative that has potential to make a significant contribution to the achievements of SDGs on a global scale. In COP28, a green credit initiative has been launched to encourage voluntary environmental positive actions. These are some of the main highlights which I wanted to share with you, as you must already be aware of this, but I thought of penning it down for my speech here. I stop here and I congratulate once again the team of TERI who have organized this event successfully, and many congratulations to the whole team of TERI. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. It was wonderful to gain such amazing insights on policy perspective from you. To encapsulate the essence of our deliberations, may I now invite Dr. Shelley Kadia, Senior Fellow and Associate Director at TERI, to provide us with a concise Curator summary. Can we have a round of applause, please? Thank you.
A very good evening to all of you. On behalf of Team TERI, I'm happy to present to you a brief summary of the summit. The proceedings over the past 3 days delved into various topics such as the energy trilemma, climate solutions, sustainable development, nature and ecosystem-based approaches, as well as sustainable lifestyles and consumption. The message is loud and clear. Addressing the policy crisis requires polycentric leadership. And yes, all of you present in this room are leaders. We deliberated through 16 plenaries, 31 thematic tracks, and the deliberations saw contributions from from the Vice President of India, from the Prime Minister of Guyana, and we also saw a written message by the Honorable Prime Minister of India, Shri Narendra Modi. We saw contributions through 10 ministerial level dignitaries, as well as more than 800 participants. We will work on key issues that emerged throughout the last 3 days through the Knowledge Initiative, Act for Earth, which comprises of the SDG Charter and the COP29 Compass. In the coming weeks, we will announce the next edition of the summit, so stay tuned. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Kedia. I must add, and we are specifically talking about leadership, so the summit has been a success because of your unwavering commitment and, of course, the support that has been extended by the entire TERI team. Can we have a huge round of applause for all of them? Thank you. As we prepare to bid audio, let us celebrate the dedication and commitment of the WSDS team as they launch the Act for Earth manifesto. Please welcome the representatives of our WSDS team. I welcome Palak, Madhu, Hina, Shivangi, Ishita, and Sonali.
Thank you so much, Shireen. The 23rd edition of the World Sustainable Development Summit brought together global leaders and stakeholders to discuss the imperatives of leadership for sustainable development and climate justice. Climate justice needs to be the North Star to guide sustainable development. Polycrisis demands polycentric leadership on integrating sustainable development, protecting nature, enhancing resilience, promoting sustainable consumption, driving energy transitions, and strengthening climate actions. It is to this end to nudge action, raise ambition, encourage dialogue, and bring like-minded people together that we have come out with the 10-point Act for Earth manifesto.
We pledge to act for Earth by formulating people and nature-centric approaches for the holistic well-being of both humanity and natural world, integrating sustainable development through policy innovations such as green budgeting, sustainable public procurement that provide right policy and market signals.
We pledge to act for Earth by critically examining existing norms and frameworks which guide climate policies and global governance processes. We also pledge to act for Earth by internationalizing and internalizing sustainable consumption and environmentally sensitive lifestyles.
We pledge to advocate for bridging the financing gap in areas of adaptation, capacity building, and innovations. We pledge to accelerate efforts to address the energy trilemma through partnerships and through navigating through geopolitical landscape.
We pledge to act for Earth by amplifying the voices of the most vulnerable communities and fostering leadership at the local, national, and global levels. We pledge to act for Earth by incorporating diverse perspectives and lived experiences of women in climate action and sustainable development. We pledge to act for Earth by nudging business leadership and environment stewardship for integrating environment and sustainable development considerations in business models across value chains. Finally, we pledge to act for Earth by encouraging young people to be catalysts for change for intergenerational and intragenerational equity.
Thank you, colleagues. We do pledge to take it forward from here on to, I don't know when, but WSDS is definitely going ages for ages. Before we conclude this remarkable gathering, let us express our deepest appreciation to all of those who have contributed to its success. I now invite Dr. Vibha Dhawan, the Director General of TERI, to deliver the vote of thanks.
Thank you, Sharon. And we always say that the dessert is the most beautiful part of the meal, and so is, I should say, the concluding session or the valedictory session today. It was presented so beautifully. Before the beginning of the session, I thought we have discussed everything, so what is going to be new there? But it was really, really a great session, and I must thank Mr. Shambi, Mr. Amit Raj, Mr. Desai, and all the participants for being with us till the last session of the day. Well, it was quite engaging 3 days. We discussed so many things, and I'll say the level of discussions, both in terms of participants as well as audience, was great. It was one of the best conferences which at least I have attended so far in my life. So it was a great meeting, and all of you were absolutely great, and I must thank you to all, and especially those who have traveled from different parts of the country and overseas. Thank you so much. I extend my heartfelt thanks to each one of you, and not just for WSTS, and I'll say all through TERI's journey of last 50 years. You have partnered with us, you have proposed your trust in TERI, and in a way, I'll say what TERI is largely because of the support we got from each one of you. I want to express my sincere thanks and gratitude to the Nodal Ministry, Ministry of Environment and Forest and Climate Change, who has supported us since the inception of this summit, and their partnership, I should say, is very important, and we are always grateful to them for their help. A sincere thanks to you, to excellencies and dignitaries whose presence has definitely added value to the summit. On behalf of TERI and WSTS team, I want to thank you, and especially our supporting partners, Royal Norwegian Embassy, Bloomberg Philanthropies, Rockefeller Foundation, BMUV IKI, World Bank, Asian Development Bank, Tata Chemical, Johnson Controls, TERI SAS, International Energy Agency, NRDC, Tata Power, and NABARD. I might have missed few, but this is what I remember right now. And while we are talking that this is the 23rd edition, I'd like to go back to the first edition, which was, in a way, the visionary Dr. R.K. Pachauri, our former Director General, and the discussions we used to have. And in fact, after a couple of meetings, it was, will we be able to sustain it every year, or should we have it alternate year, once in 4 years? And then, of course, we took the conscious decision, let's have it every year. The way world is changing, you need to deliberate on these issues on a yearly kind. You must deliberate yearly rather than postponing it to 2 or 3 years kind of thing. The entire architecture, what the structure of the summit should be, I should say it was decided long back. Dr. Pachauri had decided on it, and we started, the initial meetings were DSDS, Delhi Sustainable Development Summit, but looking at the character that we are looking at global issues, very soon the name was changed to World Sustainable Development Summit. I'd like to extend my deepest gratitude to the International Steering Committee for their continuous guidance throughout the journey, extending my thank you to the Advocacy Committee and outreach partners. As the summit concludes, our shared commitment to working for the planet and its people echoes in our work and dialogues, paving the way for a continued journey of impactful transformation. To the entire TERI family, Mr. Desai, our chairman, has perhaps entrusted me and Shally to acknowledge and thank, but I don't think so I have words to thank each one of you. It's too small a word, because when you say thank you, it can be for a very small job, but here it's such a big job. It's everything. It's curating, it is working on it, it's ensuring that we have right set of participants, And especially this year was very challenging. It was after G20, practically all the world dignitaries, they have visited India for G20 meetings, and within India also, it coincides with the Energy Week. So it was a tough job. So getting participants and the right set of participants, but the team led by Shelley, you are remarkable. You have really done exceedingly well. And I'd like to add something else to this as well. Like you have seen only one group, or you have seen one particular summit that has been done by my colleagues. But I'd like to say, what is the strength of TERI? It's not 1,000 people who are on our roll. It is that we have best of the human resource. They are next to none, and more than that you say, it's not just their caliber, it is their attitude. The word no does not exist in the dictionary of any TERIite. They are more than happy to take any challenge, and that's how, as an institute, we are meeting the changing demands of the society. I'm in TERI for n number of years, and what my qualification was when I came to TERI is very different from what I'm doing today. And that holds true because, first of all, we propose faith in them that they will be able to deliver. We give them independence, and at the end of the day, I'll say each one of them is a star. So thank you, all my colleagues. You are the best. But let me also tell you, as you do better and better, you also set a different benchmark, which is much above the earlier one. And therefore, we all have to keep on working. Sky is the limit. So that's what we have to do. And thanks once again. Now, since reading all the names, it's impossible because it's a big team which have worked for WSDS. My colleagues, they have curated a film which will show you a part of what we have done, who has done what, and a big, I should say, a big applause to all my colleagues. And thank you to everyone. Thank you so much.
Forgotten to special thanks to Ambassador Manjeev Puri, and thank you so much, sir.
Thank you so much, Dr. Dhawan. As we come to the end of this enlightening journey, let us carry forward the spirit of collaboration and innovation ignited during our time together. On behalf of the entire WSDS and TERI team, I extend our deepest gratitude to each one of you for your invaluable contribution, and I hope you all had a wonderful, enriching 3 days at the summit. Thank you for gracing us with your presence, and may the seeds of change we have planted today blossom into a brighter and more sustainable future for generations to come. I wish you all safe travels and a beautiful year ahead until we meet again. Thank you so much.